I see you, son.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm good.
I'm good also.
Yeah, I'm good. I just got the email, so it's the birthday tournament. Someone's got to slow this thing down.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone not ready? Applying the United States history to military presence, Republic of Iraq, Syria, and Republic, which wants product military presence, voice Tango, 23. Patrolling will turn attorney the fight against IS, will make local voter, freeing personnel, serve by more violators, paying will make arrests, if it die, and on the chance to any office for leverage, vitally kept truth, becoming a recurrent target, opportunity for Iran, Syria, following American women, the anti-Semitic prison, U.S. Army congregation, cutting on double down and tricking on running weapons, even Syria, additional veteran troops for all, against our war shield, even the policy seats, returning the government, the efficiency, ISIS, since long defeated, split all, never see letting go back, channelized, federal, not power to enable no U.S. foreign policy, and advantage one is Iran, opportunistic attacks on U.S. positions in Iraq and Syria, escalating to U.S. Iran war of 24-23. U.S. planned attacks in Iraq and Syria and Iran back forces increased attacks with calculation to be the region war, but lose a regional war. Syria receives Iran escalation, just spill over Israel, Hamas returns to biggest parties, decided their current situation to all past space, all around parties, and the acts simultaneously increase likelihood of something going on, to spiral, and draws in every power, destroys civilization every 20. Iran can escalate to World War III, so there's no open, let's be a government by a minor couple escalates to the Middle East, Pakistan, Russian threat from allies might be drawn in, the nukes will be used intentionally acts and miscalculation, destroy civilization, first remove spread global blood, hydrolytic ozone layer, act destroy explosive power, and doesn't have Nagasaki, and even after drawn Iran war cause extinction use of 23. Iran looked to exercise struggle with the US. Iran's accelerating spending nuclear program Iran such a few days ago grabbing the ball. But Iran continued to use to influence Iranian officials receive for millions exploring arrested. Iran continued to use for directly via proxy. Iranian proxy to launch attack Iran remaining source of invincibility. Iran's conventional capabilities. Both of Iran's launching infrastructure ballistic missiles in the region. Iran's more willing to conduct cyber operation made to critical infrastructure. Region to that Iran's more willing to compare to stronger capabilities and cyber protection for critical infrastructure undermine alliances and cause war. Rate 15. Iran to cyber attack the US with difficulties in running weather activities, espionage, attack, operation trigger, undefensive escalation, attack energy system with all order fluctuations in financial transaction, hydrogen, suppose essential risk, I mean, even cyber response to expand the conflict, such as when for the United States to go roll through global security division, weakens deterrence, trigger misperception, use commitment, and Iran use coalition, and President Phil Stop terrorism, effectuate regime change, keep adversaries out of the region, canvas in 2019. Use shifting machines for short-term leadership, minimize resources, leadership away from only military support, the Middle East shift, serious risk, the US easy to know until they precipitate crisis, use foreign agent, easily escalate multiple contingent, insufficient maintain military deployment, not American military intervention policy, use forces remaining in far away benefits, mission out, vague and achieve, vague and achieve, whatever, I mean, it goes like removing us out of here, tired. Expelling Iranian influence like the same harmonious use of change that use it keeps choosing committee for upper Syria, exposing vulnerable to any event of escalation use needs to raise this military program, minimize risking combat deployment, seeds and priorities, use points where we can turn from low-hanging opportunity use, research to priorities militarily sending, so wherever the US intervenes in core attack responsibility, considering the no idea of use of region and produce factor responsibility, and advantage choose Russia. Russia maintains strong presence in Syria despite the war in Ukraine, spending 23. Russian Northland leaves Syria, Moscow considers Syria vassal asset workers to decrease in Russian presence should be taken with grain of salt to move the touch for Ukrainian forces to district capabilities Russian troops over a moment fear operation Syria because the the conflicts over Russian Syrian territory continue to join institutes of the army and continue U.S. presence in Syria because U.S. forceful actions escalate Lair in 23. Use Russian to continue to rise to damage by Russian to Syria conflict to remind the potential danger to use Russian force operating close proximity to each other, failure to increasing hostility in direct conflict, previously running back, use cutting back unnecessary influence, contribute to spreading humanitarian truth, and use for reserves, they make good reasoning, causing no routine competition with the Russian hard than they were before mistaking against the use over the rest of the region, how to let a Russian, hoping to the use and overreact, use Russian needs withdrawn, and it's a bigger escalation of the Ukraine, it's the only theater Russian challenges directly, this is Bomb 23. Russian jet fighters to rescue forces with increased frequency, creating risks to digitally connected Russia, always over repeatedly violating long-standing areas, right situation for use, Russian forces providing Syrian vital military super use, counter enforcement, and target by rockets, Russian forces violating the state and Russian fighter bombers, Russian Russian systematic aggressive behavior tends to use Russia short falling Ukraine, fears that the competition increase, Russian one place Russian forces for ability directly tend to use military provide Ukraine vital weaponry, and use Russian war in Syria goes nuclear state 18. Russian military forces will entirely beacon targets to use missiles, Russia so should use missile attack. Powers military forces will lead more distance, Russian dangerous escalation, direct power to continue to nuclear superpowers, Russian country reckless and devastating war, and nuclear cause extinction, Papas 23. I want to go over to the strength made last time we started the bubble in the opposite. However, it's not the case today. Bombs are all bigger, single water weapon kill 100 million in 24 hours, nuclear killed 27 million wars, full scale nuclear customer 60 million overseas with 30 exists would come after the war when from Mars around the ultra climate nuclear and environmental consequences severe original war devastating and later blocks and produce precipitation global plan kill 5 million possibilities strength made zero death by contamination climate emergency still within possibility to rob the red food risk of drugs devastating carbon disease and the US has already lost free leverage in Syria conceding the region to Russia avoids great power competition preserve future stability of 2020. Recent US coming to Syria, Russia, Gillis, military government, terrorism greatly reduced the ability to read terrorist adversaries, Russia continues to Russia use policy to not represent the main threat, natives of IS, Russia not represent the main threat to use, and the sunny to IS, Russia US drag national try propagating Israel and Iran, US forces, US still dimension considerably, partly in deterrence US, other urban degrees to the extent of other priority policy choices, your bleak use, little leverage in the Russia's adverse to the quarantine Syrian policy, should be recognized necessity of pragmatic relationship, Russia intervene, and as ownership of the recognize that Russia and accept Russian influence be anything over Russia, Chile, and constructible, and framing the standards to maximize the expected well-being in 2 ways under any framework, Power 15. Reducing extra risk, the most important there, the trend and the future, the well-being of everyone, 0.001% rate, not consequential, not the latter of matter, really causal version, the anthology version, we can putting the good apply, targeting to reduce extra, receiving their 9%, they would have reason for moral uncertainty, to reduce excess risk, and moral uncertainty, putting extra risk are harsh 40 or 20, feature anything, basically, we think moral plus, we focus on our whole guys, on a proportion, version, will be more to the take, people said the 10,000 a year, who will be unable to find that any aspect of civilization, living the specific bigger challenge, but they can wait until only we can get this period of danger, sure all the future, and painting pleasure, intrinsically value, their reason to drag into themselves, negatively 6. Everyone takes a moment to be as reason for actual pleasure, being innovative. You can say that someone had a reason on how to serve, if reason makes any sense at all, as possible. Someone's never would be motivated to reduce pain. We cannot permit it to tell we hold doors with motor directed to objective value, just no objective you could overall such authority, and awareness of pleasure and universe, the phenomenal interfaction, the reliable possibly formation, those who not experience pain, bad, died off energies, room from the gene pool, Nelson 20, feelings is impossible, you can aware pleasure pain, we know that we're going to say pleasure pain, we do reject it, we need to argue and find that when adult parents that classifies the pain, actually there's pain, new sort of experiences, who are in pain, you feel things, so it's part of how you became aware of the pain issues that occurs to be phenomenology. We can be aware of pleasure pain through phenomenology because pleasure pain are phenomenological states. Every non-phenomenological alternative is flawed, and experience is the only sound justification for ethics. I'm good for cross.
Okay. Okay, on the second advantage about Russia, the first piece of evidence right after it says Russia has no plans to leave Syria, it says that they are increasingly unwilling to intervene in the country's domestic affairs, like specifically in Syria. Why is that not just directly what you're talking about?
Domestic affairs are like domestic Syrian politics. We would say that that is not the exam. That is not our impact scenario. Our argument is that Russia does not have any intention of intervening in like the Syrian government or Syrian politics. But should the U.S. engage in what they perceive to be adversarial ambitions in the region, Russia will attack with nuclear weapons.
Okay, the Lair evidence, it specifically talks about how U.S.-Russian tensions continue to rise, and since like Russia is currently like still deployed in Syria, I guess why is that not an all cause?
Yeah, so
we can't solve for?
Not an all cause. That is uniqueness for the affirmative. We made a lot of inherency and uniqueness claims about why the risk of escalation is probabilistically more likely the longer we wait. We've made claims about why it is a linear impact, i.e. as time passes, the risk of miscalculation gets probabilistically more likely. We make claims about why, in the status quo, Russia is starting to engage in things like adversarial joint military exercises with the Syrian army, which increases the risk of miscalculation. Our argument on the first advantage is that opportunistic attacks on U.S. forces in the region are happening now.
Thank you. The F-24 evidence, it seems to like make the claim, I guess, that it like seems like it's talking about like the Israel-Hamas war. I guess
that is uniqueness for the affirmative. We've said that Israel-Hamas conflict has made the risk of Middle Eastern instability uniquely likely. We use that as a reason why the spillover of such conflict is uniquely likely because Iran would have interest in intervening on behalf of its allies.
Right, but why does that matter if the plan?
It is uniqueness for the affirmative. It is a uniqueness claim. We've made claims about why in the status quo instability is uniquely high, which means that any risk of proxies attacking U.S. forces in the region escalates into regional war and global conflict.
Okay, that's fine. The cyber attack stuff, I guess, what's the break evidence? What are the warrants?
Yeah, a couple. We've made claims about why Iran is increasingly willing to attack the United States with cyber capabilities. We've also made the claim that in a world where cyber attacks are perceived as adversarial, it undermines things like alliances and allied assurance and deterrences, things like that. We've also made claims about why, even if it's the case that Iranian cyber attacks alone do not cause extinction, that ambiguity in cyberspace motivates conventional escalation, and that escalation is obviously unintended. We made miscalculation claims in this card. We've also made the miscalculation scenario proper. We've also made claims in this card about why heightened geopolitical tensions mean that Iran is more willing to engage in this reactionary
Okay.
behavior.
Thank you. The Campanus evidence. I guess what are some examples in the evidence of like why presence stops like fails to stop terrorism?
Yeah, we've made a couple of claims that list Syria as an empirical example. Troop presence in Syria has failed. The Machadi 20 evidence corroborates this claim that the U.S. has lost all of its strategic leverage in the region. What's the order?
5 off in case. It should be this week. Is there anyone that's not good?
You have to send it on the email first.
Yes, please.
Oh, my bad.
How many off did you say it was? How many off did you say it was?
5 then case. Case is just first advantage, second advantage. Okay, I'm putting it.
Thank you.
Okay, it should be set.
Perfect. But I'm good.
Okay. Anyone not good?
I have the edge received the document, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm good, whatever.
I'm good.
Okay, cool. Interpretation: the affirmative must have been a substantial reduction in military presence, meaning at least 25% U.S. Code 10. Major defense programs substantially reduce, meaning a reduction of 25% or more, and violation: the United States has at least 40,000 troops in the Middle East, 3,400 in Iraq and Syria, are not less than 623. The United States more than 40,000 military personnel in North in Syria, 900 soldiers, Iraq personnel 2,500, and limits specifying subsets harvesting huge explosion as always sending information of hundreds of different subsets of countries which incentivize them to specify random countries with no literature, limits explosive negative parameter, and draws unrestrictable lines in debate with the apples on the head, turns on pragmatic offense, fairness, you can't buy who debater debating around just years, fairness and debate to debate in the first place, drop the debater, future abuse, competing interests, views of the stars, treated by judgment, mission, because there's no clear violent, and no reacts, just debaters really theory against these positions, and next document references and defeats the relevance of national actors including the National Guards Association, should spend the cooperation, the administration of federal government in the United States, substantially reduces the military presence in Syria and Iraq, and competes a solid condition to plan number of yes, results in federal adoption and aggressive expansion rules already movement toward 1. The states of federal government are rivals, young power, plus and recognize independence and power, which ideas of superior states and poverty, administering federal programs, change of poverty states with the state and change of law and powers by the Act of 1996, states that's like after federal regulatory schemes defined ways to pass world policy, as well as any such ways, previous in love with the program instructed on poverty action, real effective federal government lies on state versus federal state policy change, federal policy change, federal became far more cooperative, cut the cooperative, and reasserting states already counter us, government fails federal approachment, a station being how long is 19. We face human challenges like salaries, jobs, and job insecurity, challenges from nuclear proliferation and Korea. I said the global terrorism, climate change issues, and greater causal limits to address. Those in the 30s, our own failing system, government study transfer the states into the federal government, so much power the federal law, particularly the president, which is targets the lobby and makes it compromise and possible creative. Unbalanced system of justice system and failure systems will never get solutions to future societal challenges. One appear dysfunction and cut the dysfunction and interpretation. The evidence specified actors in the United States and the one both negative. The after mechanism basis all strategy that subsets the lower politics and mechanism counterfeit has means of an accurate and complete size and not specified. Less than winning we prove that after the strategy and possible target and sure this immediate summer 94. The legal question is whether should cannot funerary enterprise to not to be governed by professionals more than merely indicating desirability of enterprise means at the present time being legal parties to phrase and thus the law is immediately effective and result is certain clause 3. Resolve fixed and purpose and determined and next off the roll about both debater who has truth or truth falsity resolution versus ground truth testing loss for more ground any other roll about since the loss for an infinite amount of arguments on the range of argumentation so I'll give you the most present of the topic of education science sexuality balances both after neck based on some of 5 dictionaries to find and negate as to the truth of it the purposes of truth decision of jurisdictional always all your arguments the judge evaluates and controls the internal to education and fairness as well as the activities so that would be sorry and not negate versus decision making paradox we need decision making procedure to enact the opposite procedure to request another meta level decision making procedure and so forth. And regress skepticism argument and next off interpretation the affirmative versus so that it is articulated sync roll about in the form of delayed text and the one sees speech violation. They didn't enter this first rescue absent text and when I see they multiple pieces of options or different roll abouts and read into only one answer. They never sustainably lose based on the roll about more things like chronological consequences policy making office with after critical implicity from the planet the reading probably must roll about in one answer makes you only continue to run the common office about a stable access to key fairness since otherwise you don't found anything you say if abuse begin to roll about in one area. So all you have to do is jump on the one and roll about and actually send your ones in the share and then you can't do anything about it since there's a chance of the share away extrapolations already conceded office all you need is to roll about second trust velocity A restore the roll about to be in the one area consider some advantage on the Fermi days since I have to propose one and one instance to an argument and you're putting in the app 1330 skip the B point C point debate or solve opportunities and regress obviously reading spot by spending the arbitrary roll abouts and grounded in community norms that are necessary to evaluate the base group by just putting truth as a recurring order worlds and bounds within their paradigm. D is SCH checks fails because the excuse are for the report around for the one C which is obviously because the app is infinite part time and just don't flow as on the revival and people are pushing shifting not so don't know how to ask which goes not visibility which controls centrally every person can debate existing and stop US military presence to counter ISIS increasing operation and especially Lair in 23. U.S. military A-10 carrier strike central command committed to thwarting duty ISIS in order responding contingency collectively demonstrate U.S. ability to underscore unnecessary measures will be taken and forces in Syria or key coordination with SDF and fighting ISIS Robot 23. U.S. forces coordinated with SDF later Friday air cover and assist military counterterrorism forces to improve security or counterterrorism operations to restore local government security if the U.S. would withdraw necessary evidence acts with all quickly as with multiple evidence to fight operations here withdrawal encourage new invasion of South Northeast Syria including doing not push on the absolute likely collapse of the fighting ISIS withdrawal could lead to a voluntary free for all and operations to keep ISIS restricted code 23. U.S. rating against ISIS lost 95% territory, dangers of key to economic transnational effects on region and operate overseas threat the United States, cut the card in the United States, and ISIS restriction is existential target for the 3. ISIS planned terrorists attacking Europe, trying to regain chemical weapons capacity coordination to the attacks in Europe and Asian embassies, developing model for operations, upsetting and standard operators, and targeting citizens and networks over Hamas, to the timeline to minimize infrastructure, not protecting against the United States and menace. And on the Iran advantage, you need to concede that Israel Hamas now since escalation doesn't plan can't solve more North Korea's blue at 423. Such interest with U.S. Iran solution due to the spillover from the Israel Hamas war and one SD candidates to super idea the president actually helps terrorism by cooperating with the SDF and evidence definitely postdates theirs and Iran has too much to lose in a war with the United States. The acts Iranian threats, not actions. Comment 1117. Iran did not dare to attack up directly, increasing entitled the battle to retaliate. Iran will not go beyond verbal attacks and cannot afford to go to war. Discontent among the populist retaliation result in losing power. Hezbollah has yet to show its hand beyond launching strikes with prompted retaliation. America continuing respond of course. And Avery is wrong. A, this is about rhetoric and threats, not conflict. The difference between who the attacks are used posturing. Trump with on B's qualities of rhetoric chemistry and around conflict, not a chemical equation. And C is that there's no new concession for just use nuclear counterforce and small North Korea's blue. Aggressive rhetoric, threats, and provocations can escalate to the full war. The war cannot support another large-scale conflict because in the Middle East is already a deeply troubled region because it's impossible to predict the extent of war with, and deterrence is recovering but fragile only commit to the region. Solid relevant 1122. The United States restored its standing as the power to declare that Hamas's rule must end support or Arab nations find issue number 1 to Iran against interfering reinforced by the deployment of significant forces of Iran as well from engaging in conflict against foot off the pedal perception of weaknesses of concentrate Iran's decline and deterrence and influence. Cut the card at influence and one AC USIP is missing false but is also about cyber attacks inside of the region, not on US nuclear assets, which is what their impact is about North Korea's blue. Continue to pose a threat to countries across the Middle East, ally networks and data against Israeli targets, and escalation from cyber attacks is impossible. Lewis 20. Not saying actions some like people that cause damage areas of uncertainty among attacks about the United States' ability to attribute that they are unwilling to special retaliation. No one has ever died from a cyber attack. States emphasis on espionage and conversion. The United States opponents have no interest in catastrophic cyber attack and avert escalation never occurred. They limit risk and cut the credit risk and go into the Russia advantage or evidence to super misrepresent. You need to concede that Russia is reducing troops in Syria, North Korea's blue, and one Steve talking 23. Russia has no plans to be serious, unwilling to intervene in the country's affairs, Russia has reduced the number of troops in Syria, seeking control over territory, and reduced states responsible. This is Syria, blast as withdrawal from the areas all the Taki acres are actually being transferred, and players from Russian threats from North Korea's blue, one is Ether less than 23. U.S. Russian tensions continue to rise to U.S. troops with damage by players from Russian jets over Syria. I give this episode of relaxing and marked for the drone cost over a collision, and there goes nuclear part is about U.S. directly attacking Syria. It's not in the context of U.S.-Russia war. I'll insert lines North Korea's blue, CD18. U.S. attack on Syria could lead to a nuclear Russian military forces will undoubtedly be along the targets of U.S. missiles. Russia said it will shoot down U.S. missiles and attack the platforms. And escalation is practically impossible even if Putin wanted to in 2022. Russia's military capabilities, therefore, their equipment is dated and inferior. They experience major logistical difficulties, serious level of damage means that Russia may not find a wider war nuclear weapons. It doesn't like Russia needs allies, but it does not have. There's not high risk of escalation for fear reducing an aversion to casualties. And the United States responds to Russian attacks against them or allies with a devastating counterforce, which crushes Russia long tail 19. Nuclear conflict, these counterforces, we don't option strikes against force and command and control and with B&D withheld ensure damage limitation increases in accuracy and intensity, have enhanced potency of weapons can be used as stipulated by Russia launching an attack on US or one of its allies. Didn't read the last part.
CX.
Yep, I'm good.
You read everything in the doc except the last card?
Yeah, I cut some cards short.
Where did you cut Lonsdale?
Lonsdale? Sorry, where's Lonsdale?
The second to last card. On the second advantage.
Oh, I read everything in Lonsdale.
Okay, any independent, like, what are the independent reasons throughout the team?
Spec roll the ballot and the A spec voter.
Okay, the T substantial, what is 25% reduction?
Yeah, sure. We would say that like it's 25% of reduction across the West Asia and North Africa region.
Okay, the terroricide who gets weapons of mass destruction?
Yeah, sure. Specifically, our argument is that ISIS would be able to like is about ISIS resurgence.
Target 23 is about resurgence and planning in Europe. Why is that something that the app affects?
Yeah, sure. Because our argument is that ISIS resurgence is something that is independently bad, and so far,
Right, you've made
like,
claims that ISIS resurgence is bad, but where have you read a piece of evidence that doing the plan affects the United States' ability to deter ISIS in Europe?
yeah, the Roebuck evidence does a really good job of explaining this. It says that forces that are uniquely in Syria are key for coordination with the Syrian.
Wait, why does
forces.
Syria, why does counterterror in Syria mean that the US cannot go to Europe and deter ISIS?
Right, so the argument is that right now, in the status quo, having forces in Syria is preventing an ISIS resurgence and preventing them from gaining power. Our impact scenario is talking about why ISIS resurgence is sort of
The very
existential
first
and
line
why
of the
the
Target
impact-
23 evidence says that ISIS is using Afghanistan to plan its attack. Post-plan, the US still has presence in Afghanistan. Why is this something that the app affects?
Yeah, sure. Like the argument is, it's just an impact card. So it's just explaining like why ISIS resurgence.
Wait,
is
but post-plan, presence exists in Afghanistan to deter ISIS resurgence.
Okay.
Why is this something the app affects?
Yeah, sure. One, our Code 23 evidence, it specifically talks about, it also gives like more information about like why ISIS like uniquely has like sort of motives to like do things
the
specifically
roll of the
in
ballot
Syria
stuff,
as well as.
what is a roll of the ballot?
Yeah, sure. It's like a framing argument. It's like
So any framing argument under your interpretation is sufficient?
a roll of the ballot is just basically how the judge should like frame like.
Wait, so it's framework.
It's a form of framework, but it's distinct from a
Wait, so
standard.
how does that differ
insofar-
from like vote AF because extinction outweighs?
Yeah, sure. Because like extinction outweighs is rather a standard, and it's about like how you should sort of frame the impacts of the round. The roll of ballot is uniquely distinct because the roll of ballot sort of explains like how the judge should be like framing their ballot.
You just
and
said
what
the
kind
roll of the
policy.
ballot is different because it's about how the judge evaluates the debate. Framework is about how the judge evaluates the impacts of the debate. What is the difference?
Yeah, sure. So standard is kind of how you evaluate like the substance of the round, but our argument is that roll of ballot is directly distinct from that insofar as the roll of ballot is sort of like it's like the roll of the ballot. Like it's
Okay,
how the judge
the
sort of
Melamed
should.
1122 evidence in the first advantage is about deterrence in Israel. Oh, that's fine. Okay, I'll take Brent. And you read comparative worlds as well, or truth testing?
Yeah. I read like everything in the truth testing except for like the paradox of tolerance. I didn't read that.
Okay. Okay, that was 2 minutes taken. I'll send the cards.
I have figured out speech drop, so no need to go
Okay. Let me just.
You've caught up to the 21st century now.
I'm very brave.
I'm just putting the cards in the speech drop and then I'll
Oh yeah, we also should make sure Mimou is in here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Having a hail would be good.
Yeah, that'd probably be pretty bad.
I think he's right outside Anderson.
I'll go, yeah.
We're good. Yes.
I think they low-key didn't notice that you were.
Okay, the 1AC file is spent. It's the 1AR cards are at the very bottom. Let me know when you guys are good for an order.
I'm good.
I'm good for an order.
Okay, anyone not ready for an order? Okay,
Ready for an order.
advantage 1, advantage 2. T substantial, or like the T like 25% stuff. T like spec roll the ballot. Comparative worlds. A spec. Uncooperative federalism counterplan, the DISAD.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Case, advantage 1, advantage 2. T substantial or 25%. Spec roll the ballot. Comparative worlds. A spec. The uncooperative federalism counterplan, the DISAD.
I'm good.
Anyone not ready?
One. I'm good.
Okay, anyone not ready? One, its uniquest president, Hamas warning escalation war like anyone will not go to war with the US over Israel because they don't have president 2 candidates from 2018 and updated does not matter. Concede that there is no strategic value to being in the region to begin with. Previous outcome is not a conventional, we're not our scenario. Miscalculation force that everyone together, even they don't want to see. Agrees that Iran does not want to attack the US directly, which is why our scenario is proxy element 3. Agrees to drawing claim instability equals state collapse and draw, and then also agrees when reality flows out because it proves miscalculation is high and spills up to conventional war. No deterrence. Conceded Iran is reactionary, which means that only US president drives instability are impacted by any given terrorist conventional war, not attacks on nuclear force. They've conceded the cyber attack and proxy element, which means that for first advantage goes almost completely dropped. The second advantage, when you see evidence that if it looks like they are, it looks like they're removing president. They definitely read the second paragraph that they didn't even highlight. That means that even if it looks like Russia is changing focus, they're definitely not. Confrontations to our unique dispersed because Middle Eastern Republic outweighs and makes escalation more likely. CD18 is pros miscalculation scenarios that miscalculation forces the moment first ranking fails because they can do we've lost leadership leverage in the region. The T substantial because that's going to get their quantitative qualities means we don't need to specify 25%. So we are 17. Threshold determination for substantial force requires quantitative or qualitative measure single committed specifically for any within your memory where no date within particular ways and regions to go for cambridge. No date prepared with the part of the world any relative official region or country. 1 limits our Cal have helping prep engineers check tier ability source facilities and we impact we earn a no education. 3 generic social generic crime individual crime large amounts of military was they consider generic for this often the non ever average their interest of pig which is worse than socially entirety have 1 year times 2 and is a tiny set net benefit that means when winning pigs is harder to use reasonability to furthest theory must sufficient best no intervention the roll of out so if we say sanction first counter we need to specify roll about no violation rather is not a term that within consensus meaning which is vague and arbitrary those on the negative claim when the link to the plan it's not our job to tell the name what they can and carry 1 we learn to trust here and there and means that David is a misleading roll of out or make a roll of out superior more strength than his own results because it makes the name which is more make more of a claim as to what links based on the more after make ours on here we would be required to roll of out which otherwise has to make roll of out as narrow as possible cross point preempting from above 1 year roll of out under our responsible 1 from our is justified their is not solved to be pointed because we still have additional speech the comparative world stuff use comparative world player down world what's part of the plans about that status course command policy action result of reading the whole indicates legislative formats where they want to cool interpret the world results of the resolution both the committee favor of new legislation and all these where we observe no either obviously the should be done and from our definition we're going to or don't appear in the resolution but if it's topic at change truth I think moves to topic should be lost we recycle generic arguments we deny the truth of everything always other words education will need 2 months to be the topic is incorporated serving generic arguments false are only proves that you require defense on one premise which definitely always the expect we meet we expect the United States to agree with the organs here counter we don't specify me on the resolution but it's already sharing truth even if irrigation is 6 minute plans expected if there is a attitude to be away from core atomic concrete interim pot 6 should be set the already normal means check it so we normal means under no means we say we grant links to such cross by all stuff from T from above them cooperative federalism counter condos of it you should when I feel like to heat is look like they said lethal which was one ever after the terms printed the counter US is DC called determinate US is printed the counter results essential Russia it's just the way the act can be done per the gap per do both and per do both shields links it still sees that governments are planning to state unless they do the plans those states have never made it public if you like to state counters on voters you should be field charges shall collect action what you can pass by the voters from above federalism fail and the counterplan fails because it still results in the counterplan fails if it does not result in immediate retrenchment that means that means that time frames always have to say the time frames always have to say means that only the plan can solve immediate retrenchment of the terrorism just said 1 this is the biggest link of all time one is Brownson Canada the American president trying to building Judah and by terrorism they continued that Brownlee 23 from this year that proves that only American president drives terrorism and into really over militarized presidents mean the risk of planes more instability linked to Atlantic local hunter channel. ISIS is better because the attackers are more made to protect their home than the U.S. When I see grounding, what ISIS has long since been defeated. Their impact evidence has nothing about the capacity to develop nuclear or weapons of mass destruction. Does not say the terrorists could acquire the Texas synthesis pathogens or any weapons of mass destruction. Causes was damning. They cannot explain to you why the U.S. presence existing everywhere else does not prevent the impact. Skip that card. You need to get everyone with the link is military presence exists now. ISIS restricting with me. Our presence is only escalating the companies. Obviously, the U.S. presence does not solve the terrorist problem. Which is try or direct the affirmative. Answer one. 23. ISIS currently becomes 5,000, 7,000 members. Seriously, mostly unaccomplished. Remains group. Try to eliminate some local population. Caution rebuilding and recruiting vulnerable communities. Despite sustained counter-terrorist operations, ISIS continues to command members across weapons, terrorists, recruiting, regurgitating, and use to create instability that drive terror attacks.
Okay, 4 minutes of prep starting now. Are there any voters in the one area besides condo and 50 state yacht bad?
No.
What was the standard for like condo?
1 air flex. And then it steals the 1 air.
1 air flex and it steals an air.
No, it steals the 1, like removes the 1 air.
And then on the dis side, you just read like the Oswald evidence, right?
Yes.
Okay. order is going to be condo, 50 state fiat bad, the disad, and then case.
The order on case.
First advantage, second advantage.
Okay.
I need cards.
No.
Okay, I'm good.
On condo counter-interpretation, we can defend one conditional occupancy. Condo is good versus negative. Flex and negative is always reactive. The active to error has negative to take out to a strategy. Condo resource competitive equity. Second is negation. The negative only has to differ the condo same as the effective negation. Testing for multiple angles. They're interrelated clash by insulating case from contradiction. Third is critical thinking. First is response to usage versus adaptation and logic. The opposite is process clarification and plans and impact turns out choice. First is you should just drop the argument. We're not going for the counterclaim, which means there's no sort of external reason why you should drop the debate on there. Argument about how it moves the app. It doesn't move the app. They get equal ground as far as they can sort of kick different advantages and different things to go for, which means having one conditional occupancy isn't really good because they can take different advantages, which means reserves equal ground on both sides. On the today's API shell, counter-interpretation will defend the violation. The API is good. One is logic. They arbitrarily don't let us test the after the resolution because it's predictable. And the core of the literature. Second is the best functional limit. Unpredictable as far as the negative should appear. Instead of states usually go for T and K instead. But the one C is non-negative states that the most talk relevant. Third set of forces better. Research and active instruction. Having to search for by keyword and say it would be top badass. And what encourages to go deep into the topic literature. And you can just cross by the drop the argument stuff. It also doesn't move the app insofar as we sort of have to defend like all 50 states that independently do it. We can't just like kick out individual states through that. Doesn't just work on independently. This time. Extend the Lieberman evidence. The United States is currently bolstering its military forces to counter ISIS perception. They are intimidating ISIS, support the defeat ISIS mission. They have created a global coalition in Syria to respond to a variety of contingencies. The United States has increased presence in the Middle East, and they have created a squadron of anti-attack air packs and imperial strikers to remain in the region to support U.S. forces in the rise from ISIS. Extend the robust evidence. Forces that are currently in Syria are uniquely key. Withdrawal would be devastating. The United States is cooperating with Syrian democratic forces now by providing air cover and assisting in counterterrorism operations. They are the unique force strengthening the United States and special forces, strengthening the security of the SDF by improving security at prisons that held ISIS members. Withdrawal would make the SDF lose all of its assistance, and ISIS would feel emboldened to take over, as it would be much easier for them to get out of prisons and invade northeastern Syria. SDF would collapse the United States presence because it would be overwhelmed and by pushback, meaning that they would prevent fighting ISIS and extend or cook evidence. U.S. operations in the countries are uniquely key to another researchers. ISIS lost 95% of its military strength after several years. ISIS still has a desire to regain power and are operating in hopes of destabilizing the United States, building its territorial bases in the region that directly current attacks because ISIS goes to strengthen the U.S. military and extend target evidence. ISIS research is existential and magnifies all the impacts. ISIS developing chemical weapons capacity to use in Europe and Afghanistan is becoming coordination zones that plan a variety of attacks in Europe and Asia. They have developed operators and target countries and extended facilitation networks and causes massive terrorism problems that uses of cyber, chemical, and nuclear weapons, which causes all of their impacts. It magnifies their impacts about proxy wars and their impacts about U.S.-Russia war. Insofar as it would heighten tension, as ISIS would independently cause attacks on other countries, which would cause states to sort of resort to more violence and more desperation, which just worsens all of their impacts. But it does not also independently turns case because terrorism directly causes sort of states to be in a state where they're sort of worried about their actions, and it directly worsens proxy wars because states sort of go into panic whenever terrorism happens. And insofar as it causes massive instability, which is key internally to sort of proxy wars in the first place, but it also turns the U.S.-Russia war scenario. Insofar as it would directly worsen conflict between the United States and Russia, insofar as terrorism would independently destroy this, but independently it also outweighs case insofar as the terrorism scenario sort of has widespread implications for ISIS, which means that it outweighs their U.S.-Russia impacts and proxy wars impacts because they're specific to one country, which means our nuclear war impact outweighs on scope because it's more specific to other countries as a whole. And now going to the line by line on the Brownlee cross application. One, this argument is wrong. Our argument is that they're directly cooperating with the Syrian democratic force. They have not given you sort of an example as to why that's sort of there in the first place, and you can see the Roebuck analysis that independently proves that forces are cooperating with the SDF now, which means they definitely don't get access to deterrence. Second is that it definitely we definitely do not drive terrorism. They're directly teaming up with forces of the SDF and directly countering ISIS and keeping them in prisons. That's also our Roebuck evidence that they've entirely conceded and not responded to. There's also means that this Brownlee evidence is wrong. They have not isolated sort of a warrant as to why this sort of worsen escalation in those countries. Our argument is that that United States presence is directly countering ISIS, which means that even if they're sort of wanting their risk that they're triggering escalation in Iraq and Syria, they still haven't responded to our scenario specifically. Now go on to the impact is wrong argument. One is that they've misunderstood our scenario. It's just a reason why ISIS research is bad. They sort of say that there's a disconnection between our impact and the internally scenarios that we go for, but it's just a reason why ISIS research research is bad and doesn't take out the advantage because our argument is specifically that overall, that whenever we withdraw from Syria, it causes ISIS resurgence and allows them to gain power. The evidence is just saying what happens sort of when ISIS is able to gain power, which means they're missing the question of this argument. But second is that our Cook and Roebuck evidence also explains sort of why reducing military presence in Syria is uniquely bad insofar as it allows ISIS to sort of open up and gain control over resources, specifically in Syria, which means that even if you don't buy that or other evidence that they have directly conceded says that. Now the last thing I'm going to answer is the Al-Assad evidence. They say that uniqueness and play over most the link go. It doesn't. Many of the ISIS the evidence just says that there's tons of ISIS guards, but our argument in the Roebuck evidence is that many of them are currently in prisons, and our Cook evidence also indicates that 95% of ISIS terrorism has been directly solved by having U.S. military presence in the region, which means that uniqueness independently proves that having U.S. military presence there is uniquely good to sort of solve for the issues that they independently talked about, which means that it directly solves for all their offense. It's also happening because of the U.S. presence directly, which independently just means that the withdrawing from Syria is independently nav. Now going to key specifically, going on to the Iran advantage, we're going to go for the uniqueness number. They've conceded that their own evidence says that Israel-Hamas stunts their impact insofar as its escalation that they independently can't solve for. Their F-24 evidence directly indicates that the substantial risk for escalation is due to spillover from the Israel-Hamas war. That's something that they independently cannot solve for as far as escalation is directly causing the Israel-Hamas war. They only reduce military presence in Syria and Iraq, which they definitely can't solve for it. It also means that even if they're winning all of their defense on the dis side, it's still very mandatory and proves that the dis side still outweighs because it's directly terminal defense. It proves that there's all causes that the Afghan will be able to solve for, which means that even if you sort of buy that they have a strength of link, there's other scenarios that escalation that sort of they can't solve for, which causes their impacts. And on the Russia argument, we're going to go for the Simoni evidence. Escalation is literally impossible because Russia's military capabilities are really poor, and they would never sort of want to, and they have major logistical operation error failures, which means that they would never sort of be able to prompt against the United States in the first place. Even if they wanted to, they would never have the capability to do so in the first place, which is also terminal defense to the advantage because it means the impact would never even happen.
Right. Okay, it's going to be case top down, the decide. Okay. Anyone not ready? Russia war turns out wastes terror on time frame and probability. The risk is high now. The region is heating up because Russia knows that they can challenge U.S. in the region. They've conceded in two speeches that Syria is uniquely key to Russian interests and challenging the United States. They conceded that Syria is a unique hotspot for Russian escalation. It is the only place where the U.S. can, or rather, where Russia can challenge the U.S. directly. Both countries will miscalculate and draw on great powers. Their defense is only responsive to a conventional war where the United States and Russia have made the conscious decision to attack. But that is not our scenario. Our scenario is that Russia perceives U.S. presence in the region as inherently escalatory and engages in adversarial missile and military exercises believe that they are being attacked. That causes nuclear war and extinction that turns the dissent because state collapse invites non-state and rogue actors to rapidly proliferate and exploit anarchy, assuming their impact assumes that they can create weapons capable of destroying humanity. Insofar as they've conceded that ISIS basing and planning of these attacks exists in Afghanistan, where the U.S. would have presence post-plan, you can comfortably affirm on the question of how the affirmative can solve the dissent, which is purely just that if it is true that U.S. counterterror is key in Syria, then even post-plan the U.S. can contain the conflict because they have presence everywhere else in the Middle East besides Syria and Iraq. The line behind proper one is they functionally dropped the scenario and U.S. offense is sufficient to affirm. Two, they have conceded the scenario is miscalculation. If they don't want the conventional warfare, the region is unique because they have conceded that Syria is unique to U.S. interests. They perceive incursions as inherently adversarial. They've dropped the advantage. You can vote on risk of offense. The dissent proper one. We're going for the drop link turn. They've conceded in two speeches that there is a better, but the affirmative solves better because it turns the terrorism fight over to local belligerents who are better and more equipped to fight terrorism in the region. They only answered the link turn about over militarization, but this link turn is distinct because it indicates that local belligerents at the state level are better at fighting terrorism than U.S. forces are. We're going on the line behind proper one, turning one. They misunderstood the link argument. Our argument is that even if the U.S. is cooperating with SDF, their presence in the region is the reason that terrorism exists. Even if they're right, that U.S. counter-terror operations are effective. They've not won. That U.S. presence to begin with is okay. The second point is that they prove there's no uniqueness for the dissent because resurgence has already happened in the region. They've mishandled our try or die argument. Our argument is that it is abundantly clear that U.S. presence in the region is ineffective, and that is because there are thousands of ISIS troops who are already in the region. The U.S. cannot account for them. They've conceded in two speeches that there is a link. There is no link to the dissent because ISIS is using Afghanistan and Europe to plan and base attacks, which means that post-plan the U.S. exists in those regions. If counter-terror operations in Syria are good, the place that ISIS is using for basing is where the U.S. would have presence post-plan. We've also made claims to why even if it's the case that they're winning that counterterrorism is good in the region, U.S. maintains presence everywhere else and contains the threat before they can engage in things like nuclear warfare. They've also conceded that even if they're right that terrorists would use nuclear weapons if given the chance, they have not given you an internal linking for how they acquire or create these weapons. They have not given you a steal scenario or any sort of production scenario. They've also thumped by evidence that says presence in Afghanistan is sufficient to solve the link turn. The belligerent link turn should decide the way that you evaluate this debate. The outlays. Good debate.
Good debate.